Hi, welcome to my final presentation for ProGab, English as a Second Language Simulated Lecture App, educational app to help Indian students learn the English language. Essentially, at a high level, the premise is that you have a 3D simulated lecturer that presents material that correlates to the standard Indian curriculum to help with reading comprehension and spoken understanding. It'll use a history textbook and ask questions regarding the content to assess the student's understanding. The At a high level, at the offline and online portions are the two portions of the project. The offline, that is, developing the materials that are used to run at runtime. That is taking the information from the textbook, running that through Google's entity identification to identify the subjects, then generating questions using the natural language processing library to generate the questions using the content, and all of that through a grammar analysis tool, and then sending the lines through a phoneme and facial animation generation step to generate those facial animations, and then that'll be used online to fuel the app. So the virtual lecturer will present educational materials to the student, and then the student can use speech to text to communicate, and the grammar analysis can be run on all of those pieces of input. The 3D animations and the audio that were generated before will be used to run all of this, and then the libraries in the back end that are being used to fuel all of this are Google's natural language processing API for text to speech and for entity analysis. There are publicly available books that correlate to the Indian curriculum for the CBSE and NCERT, that are the organizations that are responsible for making the curricula for those students. The Bloomsbury AI question generation using TensorFlow on the back end to generate questions. I'll show you that. Atom question answering system is the system for answering the questions that the students will ask. The Grammar Bot is the API that can be used for analysis of grammar and spelling assessment. Face Effects is a tool that is used for phoneme and facial animation generation for a 3D facial model. I'll show you that. The resource that was used for the 3D model came from CG Trader. Unity 3D is really the foundation of the app itself, used to build the app, incorporate all of the content, and then Python, is used in many places, especially though when it comes to creating and managing the content and sort of tying all of those pieces together, especially in the offline model. So I'll open up and show face effects first of all. So if you take a look, you'll see the model. This is the model that I had acquired, and you set up the model so that there are different keyframes that show different facial shapes, so that this program can then interpolate between those shapes based upon a piece of input text and audio. So for example, we're looking at I think this is like a G shape, or that's an R shape. We'll say this is H, S. So then you can see that those are what this program then will use. It maps all of those facial shapes, and then you can feed in a piece of audio and then a piece of text, and that will generate an output animation. And then if I just take one of these that I've generated here.
Akazi is a judge.
So she says Akazi is a judge, and then you can do.
After the Battle of Plassey, the actual Nawabs of Bengal were forced to give land and.
So pretty convincing. pretty solid stuff. It's not a free program, but it is up to the standard that's required to create compelling facial animations, because these are going to be referenced by the students to sort of see those facial shapes. So this is what's going to be used to generate those animations. Now, if we take a look at, let's see here, Python. There's plenty of Python scripts to go around. Bring that up here. So I'll move myself over here. So what you'll see here is this is actually a helper script that I wrote for Face Effects to speed up the export process. So it recorded mouse inputs and clicked in various. So I'll show you that now. But when you run this, it's going to click all of the appropriate areas that are required to bulk import assets that were created. So if I run this, if I pull up Face Effects, and then I run this script, you'll see it'll go add a new animation, pick the appropriate animation. You see there's many lines that have been generated here. It pulls the right text file, and then at that point it would run the rest of the process. You'll see that's how it would generate all these hundreds and hundreds of animations. There's a ton of content. So a lot of the focus on this is being able to take entire books or entire chapters from books and generate very large volumes of content using an automated pipeline. And that's a really important part of being able to, develop a resource that can be used along with the curriculum, or research that can be done to produce things in a way that's really scalable. So that's the Face Effects script. This script is for processing the text that that I got. So if I show here, this is a book, a history book that I downloaded. I provided links to all of these in the slides. You can go there. But we're going to be looking at chapter 2. And this is focusing on the East India Trading Company and their history, the relationship with England in 1707 and thereabouts. So you can see this is an entire chapter of material from this book. What we want to do is present this in a way that's going to be useful in this context. So what I did then was I just took all of the main content here and just copied this, pasted it into a text file. It's a pretty straightforward process that could be automated. And then we have a text file here that has all of this information. One other thing is I added a tilde so I could delineate between the sections. So once we have that, we will feed that into the script. And what this script will do is go through all of that information, and it will get the titles of each section. It'll get the sections themselves. It will modify the text so that it is doesn't have any grammatical, or it doesn't have any problems with like spacing that's incorrect, or the new lines. It'll basically format the text and then feed that into okay. So here what we need to do is make any numbers that are present in this text into words. So we use a lot num to words library for that, because Face Effects can't as accurately read numerical input for some reason, so we have to convert it using that pretty simple library there. And then we go through and we're able to write all of those pieces out. Then the next step is that we're going to feed all of this over to Google API for language processing, and what that's going to do is it's going to synthesize the voice. So we're going to give this to speech to text for Google. It's going to synthesize our MP3 files for voice, and it'll write that as an MP3, convert it to a WAV so we can use it in a bunch of different formats, because you need some different formats, and then we're going to write out a text file as well. And what this is doing as it's going through is creating a list of, for each sentence, it's creating an associated key that is smaller than the entire sentence, and that key is going to be used to reference all of these assets that are being generated. Because there's going to be a ton of assets. There's 202 sentences that are evaluated from this one chapter. For those, there's going to be a set of MP3 files, a set of WAV files, a set of text files that correlate to each line. Those can be fed into face effects. There's going to be the titles for each section that are put into a list, into an asset. There's going to be each section, and just the text that's presented to the students is going to be presented there. So, this is kind of dumping out all of that information. This is going to be to generate questions. So then the other component here is going to be to link up to the question generation library that I had found. So this will feed the sentence, or the section rather. So we have like a whole paragraph or something that will feed the paragraph to the Google entity analysis. And that'll determine what the prominent entities are in that sentence. And among those, you can see if any of them are searchable on Wikipedia. And in doing so, you can see things that are probably salient entities that we're going to want to ask questions regarding. Because whenever we are running this question generation library, the way that it actually works is that it takes a corpus, and then it takes an answer, and then it'll give you a question based upon that. So you need to give it an answer so that it can give you an appropriate response. So the way that we get that answer is we give it this whole section. We look at all of the salient entities using things that are probably going to be, salient because they're on Wikipedia. And then we feed that as a potential answer, and we have a very high then response that is appropriate questions. It's not 100%, but we have a lot of really, valuable questions then that we can ask. And again, this is all scalable, so we can feed entire books into this, and it's going to be able to give us the kind of content that we're going to want. So see, it's that whenever we're running this other library to generate questions, we're just going to run that in the background, and it's going to be able to kick all of that out to us. So then I can show you the resources this ends up creating. So it gives you this titles. So this is going through each section, finding the title of that section and using that to fuel the app. And then we're going to go to what it's generated here. So the Python script is going to generate all of these text files are going to be each sentence that is that's going to be used for face effects to generate the animations, and this is going to be transitioning any text that is a literal number into the how do I say it? Like here, like 1,800. So the face effects can use that appropriately. It's going to generate all of these MP3s that are the output speech. If we can open one of these.
After the death of Aurangzeb, the Bengal Nawabs asserted their power and autonomy.
Right. So then converting those to WAV format so that we can use those in multiple programs. And then the face effects FBX animations that are exported, are kicked out to this folder as well. And then we can take all of this content and we'll put it into Unity, and we'll use that to actually put everything together and assemble everything. I think I see it. So keys as well. So we're going to have our questions that are generated, and we're going to have the lines that are generated. So the lines that are generated are just going to be the text in a way that's going to be presented in the app, and then questions. For example, here we have how trade led to battles. So the answers are going to be these salient items, and who became Nawab of Bengal, Rashid Qali Khan, who followed. So you can see that a lot of these are going to be appropriate, and some of them are going to be things that are like pretty a lot of times they're going to be pretty close, But even if you are able then to take these and read through the text, you can tweak what is actually being asked in terms of these questions to assess the student understanding. So the questions here are generated, and they're able to be used in the context of the app. At this point, the development process of the app does not incorporate these questions directly. However, it does have the speech to text and HTTP communication with this computer as a server. So then you would be able to have the question be presented. So then if we go to Unity, we can see, let me make sure that I'm done here. Yeah, the one other piece here was the HTTP server. That is, if we have a Python script running that will allow students to ask questions, and then the question generation, or the question answering system will be running on this, either this computer or a server, EC2 instance on Amazon or something, and then you can just have web communication as a means to ask those questions. Just because the size of the libraries and getting those to run on a mobile device are just impractical. So then if we look at Unity, this is where we're going to tie everything together, and we're actually going to build out the app. We're going to put the app together. So I will go to the title screen, and this is going to be on the resolution of the Android device that I'm actually building out to. And I'll just run this real quick so we can see what this looks like. And actually, I'll tell you what, I will maximize this on play so we can get a nice big view of what's going on here. Section selection, and then it populates with a list. You can see we have all of this content, and then each of these has its entire bit of content, and then we'll click on one, and
Tipu Sultan, the Tiger of Mysore. The company resorted to direct military confrontation when it saw a threat to its political or economic interests. This can be illustrated with the case of the southern Indian state of Mysore.
So you can see this is the end result, the lecturer actually speaking. The lines are presented here. The lines can either be presented or not, depending on the level of difficulty. And then once this information, this paragraph is done being presented, then the students can be asked those questions to assess comprehension. And then on a device, you would have a speak button, and you would have the student being able to interject and ask questions. And essentially what that's doing whenever a student asks questions is it's taking that question and feeding it to a support vector machine that is trying to look for parts of that provided corpus text that correlate to what's being asked. So if they said, let's see if we can find an example.
Mysore had grown
Under the powers leadership. So if they said what happened in 1761, like I kind of don't recall what happened then it could go through and kind of pull that information, or ask about a specific person or entity or something like that. And then
in strength under
we can go back. The speak button, that'll work on the mobile device, and I'll show that actually built out running on a mobile platform. It's pretty performant. I think at the end this comes out to a manageable size, under 50 megabytes if I recall. And then yeah, we can quit out of that if we were to want to do that as well. I can go here, and we'll take a look now at a device actually running it. So let me turn on this device real quick. Okay, so you see we have our ProGab app here. We'll open that up. We'll do chapter selection. You see here, runs pretty well. We can just kind of click on, whatever we like.
Intro.
In 1600, the East India Company acquired a charter from the ruler of England, Queen Elizabeth.
And then we can
I
speak as well here. I have a question about what you asked.
To trade with the East. This meant that no...
And you can't really see it on this camera right now, but the questions being asked shows up in real time, and that would then trigger the process to communicate with the HTTP server and run that question through that Python question answering library as a forward step in this development process. And then you can just simply quit out of the app, and there you have it. Runs pretty well. So if we switch back, we can just kind of go through real quick and look at the way that this is set up. It generates, it takes all of these animations and everything that are generated. It generates whole, how do I say, animation trees, the controllers that are used to run that. All of these text files, again, the audio files are referenced using their keys. I don't know if there's anything that is particularly that I haven't touched on this aspect. I believe that is a conclusion of the summary of the development process for this. It's been pretty enjoyable to work on, and I think that it can have a good amount of impact. It's pretty scalable and reusable process. So now all of that information could be run through all those books that are provided. History books work particularly well, just the way that the content's set up versus a math book or something. Next steps could be as well to optimize the pipeline a little bit, compress the audio, make sure that that's working, get the APIs hooked up for the question generation, for the question answering, get the question generation, so that it is so that the students can answer those questions, and have more content that can be delivered. Oh, and having the grammar analysis tool. There's a free API grammar bot that is that I found. Use that as well. So great. Thanks for checking it out.